why do so many yoga students struggle with this transition of hopping to the back of the mat? Why is this so challenging for so many people, and what can you as a teacher do about it? Well, I'm going to share with you a very simple thing that you can integrate into your classes that will help your students see progress and build confidence to approach this transition. Now, one of the reasons that your students might struggle with this is definitely something like hamstring flexibility. It will impact how far they're able to bend over and press into the ground to make this transition possible. Another component is their upper body strength. That also plays a role. However, those two things totally aside, there is one key fundamental thing that is very, very simple, that if you teach this to your students, it will automatically enhance their ability to do this transition with more ease, and not only to do it with more ease, but for those of your students that are just like, no way, there's no way I could ever do this, I don't even know how to do it, and I feel like I don't even know if I can try, this little thing is going to also give them the confidence to understand how this transition works in their body so that they can approach it too. And it has everything to do with the way that you teach your halfway lift. Now, generally when we come into a halfway lift, it doesn't matter where the hands are. The cue is inhale, halfway lift, exhale, maybe there's a forward fold, and then the transition in the cue to step or hop to the back of the mat. Now, what is missing in there is the very core foundations of a hop, which is getting weight off the heels, into the toes, into the hands, and eventually getting weight off the feet altogether. That is what we are missing here. And this is a mechanism that when your students begin to understand this, they can actually put more awareness and more emphasis into this body weight transfer, which gives them the confidence and the understanding to be able to approach this transition with a lot more success. Now, what we generally see happening within our students' bodies that struggle with this transition is that they're not fully understanding that there needs to be a weight transfer out of the heels into the toes in the very least, into the hands as much as possible in order to take weight off the feet to step back. So you'll see them getting stuck like this because they're trying to hop. They don't understand that they've got to transfer the weight. So the feet, they get stuck and then they're hopping to the back of the mat like that. There isn't this understanding of the mechanism to transfer. So therefore, they don't really have a lot of tools. It doesn't matter how tight or flexible the hamstrings are. It doesn't matter how strong or weak the upper body is. If they don't understand that they've got to transfer body weight out of the heels, into the toes, into the hands, eventually off of the toes and into the hands fully, they will never get this transition with success because they will always be struggling with feeling like the feet are stuck underneath them in some capacity. So there are two ways that you can approach this when you teach. Number one, you can include this cue in your halfway lift to transfer the body weight forward into the toes. So it can be something like inhale, halfway lift, transfer the body weight forward into the toes, out of the heels. Land your hands palms flat, keep transferring your body weight forward into the toes and into the hands, and hop to the back of the mat. Do you see how much more manageable that is? The further the body weight is transferred forward, the easier it is to step the feet back. But if there is not an understanding of that little in-between bit, then your students are not going to have a lot of success there. Now, you can cue that, as I said, in your halfway lift. Or, if you're not going to cue it in your halfway lift and you have a different way that you would like to cue halfway lift, stick with that, but you're probably going to have to cue the body weight transfer in between the halfway lift and the instruction to get your students to step or hop to the back of the mat. So maybe you want to cue halfway lift just like you normally would. However that is, inhale, halfway lift, exhale. Start to transfer your body weight forward into the hands, into the toes, out of the heels, press through the hands, hop or step to the back of the mat. Now, even your students that are just simply stepping to the back of the mat, there is still a body weight transfer that has to happen. You try to transition with the hands on the ground and the weight onto the heels. It is not very easy, nor is it actually very sustainable because it puts an insane amount of torque and tugging onto the hamstrings, which is not super safe in the long run for your students. So body weight transfer onto the toes. 2 ways that you can do it: in the halfway lift cueing, or in between the halfway lift cueing and the cue to step or hop to the back of the mat. When your students start to understand this mechanism of the body weight coming forward into the toes and into the hands, then they'll start to build more confidence and play around with how much they need to do that in order to improve and approach this transition of hopping to the back of the mat. Now, there are 2 additional things that I would encourage you to support your students with, and that is letting go of the idea of what the hop looks like and where it's coming from, and stepping into the idea that a hop is a hop is a hop. It doesn't matter whether your feet are together, whether your knees are bent or straight, your feet are apart. It doesn't matter. So if you have someone who does struggle with hamstring flexibility and they're not able to get the hands forward, or maybe they're finding that there's something in the way here and it's hard to get the hands on the ground, get them to bend the knees. The hands don't have to be close into the feet. In fact, that makes it a lot harder for your students to access this when the hands are close into the feet. So bend the knees as much as they need to. Lean and take the hands as far forward from the feet as they need to. And the other thing, widen the feet as much as they need to. It doesn't matter what the legs are doing. If this gives your students more capacity, more confidence to be able to hop to the back of the mat, who cares if their feet are together or apart? Who cares if their knees are bent or straight? If they can get their hands and the weight forward into the hands, out of the heels, into the toes, to feel that little tip, they can feel, right? You can feel that in your body when that changes. If they can feel that, it doesn't matter what their knees are doing in terms of being bent or straight. It doesn't matter what their feet are doing in terms of being narrow or wide. It is the hop, the action of the hop, and the most base level layer of a hop is transfer the body weight out of the heels, into the toes, into the hands, and eventually off of the toes altogether. Try this in your next sequence and notice how your students respond. It is very likely that they'll find it's a little bit more challenging. However, it sets them up with the awareness and an understanding of the mechanism that's required to do this transition, and it can be approached by any student that you have, so long as they are able to get those hands on the ground. And even if they can't, they can still take those hands off of the ground, feel the body weight transfer, and move through just stepping to the back of the mat, and they're going to get a very similar sensation and a similar understanding of that mechanism that's required if one day they do want to take a hop to the back of the mat. Give this a try in your class. Let me know how it goes. Make sure that you like and subscribe for more amazing yoga teacher tips just like this.